how do you see the evolution of the system of collective organization? You think that we'll see more fragmentation in the future, or we will evolve towards large aggregates of jurisdiction? What do you think?
Difficult for me to predict. One thing I would like to say is, up to now, there has not been any split of democratic countries. Well-established democracies stay together. When you are a well-established democracy, your people, they are invited to be loyal to each other. You don't choose your fellow citizens according to the fact that they don't speak your language or don't have your religion, or you welcome all of them. And secessions happened during colonial times or at the end of the USSR, but in a well-established democracy, up to now at least, we'll see, people stay together and they help each other.
I think in Catalonia, I don't know in Quebec or in other small nations with strong identity, but in Catalonia there is the myth that small independent nations do well. You know, that we need to be small and homogeneous because these kind of nations do well in an interdependent world. What do you think of this view?
It's for the people of Catalonia to look at that carefully, but I would say that in Canada, 10 egotistic republics at the north of the United States instead of a united Canada would not be an improvement. Canada is stronger than each of its provinces alone. Quebec is less rich than Canada together. There is no rationale from a point of view of the economy to break up a country like Canada. I will allow the people of Spain to think about that according to their own context.
Yes. So one big difference between Canada and Spain and Catalonia and Quebec is that here we are in Europe. We are in the process of political and economic integration in the European Union, and you know, most citizens of Catalonia, most citizens of Spain support this process. So most of us agree that it is good to have a more united Europe. So how do you see this? What is your opinion about the process of European integration? Do you think is that a good process? Do you think that Europe will become a federation as Canada, or do you think that's almost impossible and it's impossible to separate strong national identities as the member states of Europe?
It's for the people of Europe to decide that, but if you want Europe to be a federation, that means that what would be needed is a government of Europe with direct links with the electorate of Europe. It is not existing today. A federation supposes two levels of government, each of them being in direct touch with the people. It does not exist today. You don't have a government of Europe elected by Europeans. You have a Parliament of Europe, but no executive branch accountable to this Parliament of Europe.
There will be one important step this year, which is that the new European Parliament, elected in May, will for the first time elect the President of the European Commission. That will be a good step, I think.
Yes, it's a step. Yes. But it's still not an executive branch with specific powers entrenched in the Constitution,
yes,
which is the definition of a federation. But European Union has characteristics that are relevant for a federation. But your question was, is Europe a federation, and if not, what is lacking? Okay. And the key point is, to be a federation, you need to have a government directly accountable to a parliament elected by the people.
Yes, that's right. So, what do you think, for example, related to this? The president of Catalonia, Mr. Mas, says that to him it seems natural that the destiny of a small nation is to create its own state. Do you think that makes any sense? Or I would say that the destiny of a small nation, at least in Europe, is to create a united Europe. That seems to be the direction of history.
Yes, and the other point is, I don't think Europe wants to have a proliferation of states. It's complex enough to govern Europe with the existing states.
28
if each of these states decide to be 2 or 3 or you know how much, then it will make Europe even more complex to govern. But this being said, It's not for me to decide these kind of things, but I think Europe is complex enough for now.
Yes, right. So one thing you've been saying these days is that, for example, Spain and Belgium have decentralized a lot, especially Spain in a very short period of time. But still, you say you're very decentralized. You have, regional governments have lots of competences, but still you still argue that going from there to create a new state would be a dramatic decision.
Yeah.
So what's the nature of this last step? Why would it be so dramatic if we are already that decentralized? Why is it?
I don't think secession is easy to do at all. If people want to secede, people must be aware of the difficulties. It's not like transferring some powers from the central government to the regional government. It is to erect an international border between fellow citizens that all of a sudden stop to be fellow citizens. And that is very traumatic. It's not easy to do. First, you need to have a legal framework. You cannot say, oh, it's for the people to decide and I don't care about the legal framework, because if you decide that your neighbor is not a Spaniard anymore, but your neighbor wants to stay a Spaniard, and that your neighbor has the law for him or her, what do you do? So you need to have a legal framework. You need to negotiate the transfer of billions of euros or dollars. You need to decide the transfer of tens of thousands of public servants who have union rights. You need to find the declaration of impuestos. You need to
the claims to social security, for example,
countless contracts and treaties, international treaties to adjust. In the case of Scotland, the government of Scotland, the nationalist government of Scotland said that they expect to negotiate with UK for a year and a half. And the government of UK said it's not enough, we expect at least 2 years. And most experts agree with the government of UK. So you don't leave Spain, UK or Canada as you leave a camping. That's very complex to do, very complicated, very traumatic, and people must be aware of it.
Yes, yes. So another thing that you've been asked and you've been responding very clearly is that, although you have experienced two referenda and you supported the celebration of the referenda in Quebec, you still think it's not such a good idea. You think that the referendum is divisive?
Yeah, very divisive.
You've been asked
divisive between Quebecers.
So people ask you, why do you have the right to do that in Canada and we don't have that right to do that in Catalonia? So what would you answer to that?
It's not for me to lecture Spain. Canada has indeed a political culture where we think that if Quebecers clearly want to leave, Canada would not make sense to keep Quebecers within Canada. And so if the government of the province of Quebec is able to show through a referendum that clearly Quebecers want to stop to be Canadian, then a negotiation for an agreement of separation would start. It will be, as I said just before, very complex, but we'll try at least to see if there is a way to separate with justice for everyone. That's the way we act in Canada. But Canada and UK are not the norm, they are the exception. Well, most countries, almost all countries, decide that they are indivisible, like Spain. Your neighbors, Italy, France, they are indivisible according to their constitution, or in the United States the same, they have jurisprudence, case in law. The same for Australia, and most countries say, look, every square centimeter of the country belongs to all the citizens of the country. So some citizens cannot take part of it and leave with it. That's not possible in our legal framework. So Spain is not alone to consider that this is the way.
Yes, but also because in plural societies that are heterogeneous, like Catalonia, Quebec, or even Scotland, I guess, but Catalonia more so, don't you think that having a referendum is putting the people under pressure to define themselves, to choose one of the several identities that each of us has? I mean, most of us are bilingual, Most of us have friends in the rest of Spain. Most of us have relatives, clients. You know, most of Catalans define themselves as partly Catalan, partly Spanish at least. So don't you think that it's a bad instrument? It's a bad democratic instrument to ask people to choose in binary terms on identity. Don't you think it would be better to let political representatives to reach an agreement and then pose this agreement in a question to the citizens?
Two things about that. First, for many people like me, it's very difficult to ask me to choose between Quebec and Canada. I don't want to choose.
Yeah.
I'm Quebecer and Canadian. I'm proud Quebecer and proud Canadian. I guess that you have proud Catalans and that are also proud Spaniards. I guess it's the case, but it's for you to look at in your own country. But in Canada, most of us would say, don't ask me to choose. This exercise to choose by your referendum if I will be Canadian or Quebecer, it's awful. I don't want that. Second, if you want to improve your country and your region within the country, to improve Quebec within Canada, it's very difficult to do so in blackmailing people with separation. If you say to the other Canadians, give me what I want, otherwise I will leave, they will be concerned that if they give what you want, you will have an additional reason to leave. You will say, oh, I have a new power, I'm even closer to separation. So the only way to have a dialogue that may work, it seems to me, is to say, I'm a loyal Canadian. I want to improve Canada. I have ideas to improve Canada.
Let's improve it together.
Let's improve it together. What I'm proposing will be good for all of us.
Sure.
And in this way, yes, Quebec will have more leeway to develop within Canada in its own way. Because other Canadians will be confident that Quebecers are working for Canada, not against Canada. If you say, oh, I want to stay in Canada only if you give me these and that powers, otherwise I will leave, then they will question your loyalty.
Yes.
And it will be very difficult for you to have a comprehensiveness from the rest of Canada.
And also a position that some nationalists have, I think hypocritically, is to say, okay, you Spain, make a proposal. You Spain, make a proposal to us. And then we'll ask that to the Catalan people. Don't you think it would be more loyal to say, you and us, together Spain, okay? Let us together make a proposal that is satisfactory to the Catalan and the Spanish people. That would be more loyal. And actually that's the way that...
Maybe you have the answer in your question.
Yeah. But what's your opinion about that?
My opinion is that is the only way it works in Canada. Each time we Quebecers are blackmailing with separation, we are going nowhere. Each time we show that Canada is better with the Quebec culture, our ability to be in our own way Canadian, then Canada is progressing as one of the best countries of the world.
Yes. So some people, you said the other day, I remember, that it would be so frustrating to say that Canada has failed. You know, Canada is such a tolerant country, such a country with such high quality institutions. What would be the message to the rest of the world if Canada failed?
Some separatists in Quebec are saying that. They are saying, I don't want to separate, but since Canada is a failure, I have no other choice. I don't think it's very sincere.
Yes.
Because if Canada doesn't work, show me a country that works on this planet.
Exactly.
So that doesn't make sense. One may say Canada is not perfect. I have ideas to improve it as a Canadian and with my eyes and my culture of Quebecer. And this is a much more effective way to go ahead together.
So in Catalonia, many well-intentioned people, even people that are in favor of a federation with Spain, some of them say, let's do a referendum, because this is the only way to solve the problem forever.
Oh no.
You don't have experience in Canada, right?
No.
You didn't solve it with a referendum.
Once you start with this idea that separation may be an option, it never ends. At the first difficulty where you negotiate something about a budget or a reform and it's not exactly what you want, some will say, oh, it's a reason to secede and to leave. If you trivialize the idea of separation, you're not helping your ability to have positive improvements.
Because you had one referendum in 1980, another in 1995,
and maybe
and
another
you haven't
one.
solved it yet.
No, because at the moment where we speak, we have an election in Quebec where the separatist party is ahead. I'm not sure they will win the election, and if they win the election, they may see that they don't have the support for a referendum on secession. but it's just to say that the issue has not been solved only by a referendum. I don't think referendums of this kind are helpful.
Yes. So what do you think are what do you think are good characteristics of a good federation? What are the characteristics that define a good federation?
Two things, the autonomy of the regions and the loyalty of the whole. Mm-hmm. You have the ability to be with your own institutions when you need it, and the support of all the citizens of the country through the common institutions when you need it. Mm-hmm. So for a population like Quebec, where we have our own language, our own culture, it's great because you have the advantage of being strong in our own culture, but sharing the whole country with others with their different cultures and languages, and to learn from them. It's not because they are different than you that they cannot be your fellow citizen. To the contrary, diversity will be a strength if you welcome it. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to suggest that it's the only way you may think in Catalonia. It's for you to decide, but for me to be with people who are not aware of all the subtleties of the Quebec culture is not a problem as such, as long as within Quebec we have this ability to have our education system, or salute, or I'm mixing English and Spanish now, or our own institutions of development, and sharing with others the common institutions of Canada, the currency of Canada, the symbols of Canada, the prestige of Canada around the world, the history we have built together.
So in Catalonia, as well as in the Basque Country, one obstacle to that loyalty is that many people, I don't know if a majority, perhaps not a majority, but many people do not accept, do not feel attached to the Spanish symbols. They don't feel Spanish. So how can we build a long-lasting federation with these very concentrated sentiments of rejection to a common project in a country that as opposite?
But I guess that some Catalans are proud to be Spaniards.
Yes.
They should speak up. Instead of saying nothing, or if they are saying nothing, don't want to blame anyone. I'm not here to lecture anyone, but you are inviting me to comment about that.
Sure.
I guess you have some people in Catalonia who are saying, I'm proud to be Spaniard. It's great for me. And why they don't speak out? Why they don't explain why it's the case?
Well, because it's unpopular. It's unpopular because...
Don't be shy.
Yeah, but we have an option.
If I had to wait for Canada to be popular in Quebec, Quebec would have seceded from Canada from a long time.
I know.
One day I said, enough is enough. I don't want my daughter to lose Canada. I will speak out clearly for Canada. And you know what? At the very moment I started to do so, many Quebecers were speaking out as well. It was time that we felt free to speak and to explain how much we are proud to be Quebecer and Canadian.
But in Spain there's a difficulty for that, which is that the Franco regime. I mean, many people still feel that to say that you feel Spanish is to be associated with Españolismo, you know, the feelings of a common homogeneous identity inherited from the Franco period. So we have that obstacle. I think we have to be more subtle than that. We have to say, let's build with Spain, let's build with our partners, with our friends in Spain, a project to become united in Europe, something like that, you know, something that looks more to the future than to the past.
Without interfering in your own debate, can I give the view of a foreigner?
Sure.
And a Democrat? Mm-hmm. I think your country, Spain, has been the hero of the democratization of the world. That because your
Okay, so here we are in Tarragona.
In English?
In English. Is that okay?
Yes, it's the Berlin Wall. It's the last time I checked in Canada.
Keep checking. So we are in Tarragona. This was the capital of Hispania, which was not independent in those times. It was part of the Roman Empire. And the fall of that empire started a long era of jurisdictional fragmentation, competition and wars, which ended with the tragedies of the 20th century. So my first question would be, how do you see the evolution of the system of collective organization? You think that we'll see more fragmentation in the future, or we will evolve towards large aggregates of jurisdiction? What do you think?
It's difficult for me to predict. One thing I would like to say is, up to now, there has not been any split of democratic countries. Well-established democracies stay together. When you are a well-established democracy, your people... Second thing, Spain at that time, when Franco died, was a very centralized country. Now, I understand that some people will say it's still not decentralized enough. But according to experts, when they look at that, they compare. They say Spain is maybe one of the most decentralized countries of Europe. Maybe not as much as Switzerland and Germany, but not so far. Quite an achievement. And I guess that Catalans have been key to help Spain to develop this way. So is it possible for some people to say that the success of Spain is because we are together? Is it possible to say that? I am interfering when I suggest that's a possibility.
It's an obvious possibility, but we clearly find difficulties in being ready to say that explicitly. I mean, we probably have a mental obstacle to do that, but clearly we should be able to share with, you know, tolerant, progressive, liberal people in the rest of Spain a common identity associated to the support for democracy, the support for decentralization, and the support for the European project.
And the idea that the diversity of Spain is a strength.
Exactly.
Something that everybody must understand, including the power in Madrid. I understand that. But it's difficult to think that diversity is a strength in a context where you think that diversity will explode your country.
Exactly, yes, that's right, yes. But the difficulty we face in that, and you probably had also that difficulty in Canada, is that, for example, for us in Catalonia, diversity is an everyday experience. We experience diversity every day, now, in this restaurant, right?
Yeah.
In our homes, we speak 2 languages in our homes. We speak 2 languages in our streets with our friends, with our colleagues at work. So we experience diversity every single day. Whereas in the typical region of Spain, they only speak 1 language, and for them diversity is something noisy in the periphery of Spain. So how to convey to them the urgency of the recognition of diversity, because they don't feel it every day.
In my experience in my country, is that of course English speakers usually speak only 1 language, English. English is the international language. Some of them will learn French and will speak a bit French, but most of them will not speak French.
Yeah, they don't need it.
This being said, when you ask them, are you proud that French is part of your country, that there is a French reality, a French fact in Canada, except some bigots, overwhelming majority said, yes, I'm proud of it. I hope my children will speak French. I don't, but I hope. So even though they don't speak the language, it's part of that country. In the Canadian airports, you hear the 2 languages.
So can we start?
Okay.
Okay, so here we are in Tarragona.
In English?
In English. Is that okay?
Yes, they know the basic. The last time I checked in Canada.
Keep checking. So we're in Tarragona. This was the capital of Hispania, which was not independent.
French after.
Part of the Roman Empire. And the fall of that empire started
which is not
fictional fragmentation, competition and wars, which ended with the tragedies of the 20th century. So my first question would be, how do you see the evolution of the system of collective organization? You think that we'll see more fragmentation in the future, or we will evolve towards large aggregates of jurisdiction? What do you think?
Difficult for me to predict. One thing I would like to say is, up to now, there has not been any split of democratic countries. Well-established democracies stay together. When you are a well-established democracy, your people, they are invited to be loyal to each other. You don't choose your fellow citizens according to the fact that they don't speak your language or don't have your religion, or you welcome all of them. And secessions happened during colonial times or at the end of the USSR. Quebec from Canada, an established democracy, up to now at least, we'll see, flat between people stay together and they help each other.
I think in Catalonia, I don't know, in Quebec or in other small nations with strong identity, but in Catalonia there is the myth that small independent nations do well, that we need to be small and homogeneous because these kind of nations do well in an interdependent world. What do you think of this view?
it's for the people of Catalonia to look at that carefully, but I would say that in Canada, very important. It got a lot about identities, and that's the key, but the economy as well. There is no rationale to break up Canada. I don't think so. And in the past, the separatists were arguing, oh, in the world in which we are, it's a borderless economy. So the world will be globalized to the point that borders will not matter anymore. So we may succeed.
So why do they need a new border if borders do not matter?
That we have a border to protect our culture, but this border will not stop us to trade with others. And that was a very strong argument in 1995 at the last referendum in Quebec, the borderless economy, where we may have borders to protect the culture.
Yeah.
Except that since then you have the Buy America of Mr. Obama. And in fact, you see that the countries are still very protectionist. And the ability to trade has not improved at the end of the day. I think the trade between two Canadian provinces is much more intense than the trade between a Canadian province and a US state.
Oh, yes, that's correct.
Even though the US state is your direct neighbor, you will trade more.
That's also in part of the debate in Catalonia.
It's because we have the same currency, we have the same institutions, the same central government,
same communication
the
system.
same regulations, the same communication system, and this thing that we call national solidarity. That is an important aspect of the economy. Don't underestimate how much national links may strengthen an economy.
Yes. Actually, I would say that in Europe, both in Scotland and in Catalonia, in the last few months, the economic debate has been basically lost by the secessionists, because we've had the speech by the central banker of England, who is a Canadian.
Yeah.
We've had
Minister of Finance of England.
Exactly, lots of documents. We have editorials from the Financial Times, from The Economist. You know, all expert opinion in economic, all neutral, European expert opinion in economic is against the idea of secession inside the European Union. Still, there are groups of economists, Catalan economists, who argue in economic terms in favor of independence, which poses to me the question of the role of intellectuals. I mean, they speak more as nationalists than as intellectuals, because they are completely unable to convince their other colleagues from other countries. All these very prestigious economists in Catalonia have been completely unable to convince their colleagues in England, in Germany, in the Financial Times, in The Economist. So what's the role of intellectuals here? Did you experience that as well, that intellectuals become kind of kidnapped by their
I agree
identities?
with you that some academics are supposed to be experts, scientists.
Exactly.
In fact, their nationalist emotions will prevent them to come with assessments that are based on their expertise.
Actually, they become experts in manipulating the facts in favor of their prior biases. That's
They are not necessarily aware of it, but
Yes, exactly.
their adhesion to the cause prevent them to stay real experts.
Yes.
I have seen that in Quebec and again and again. But we should then continue to argue without to be intimidated. And I would suggest always in stopping to go within attack.
Not going to
personal attacks and character assassination. Don't go there. Nationalism is sometimes a very emotional ideology, so stay calm, quiet, and look at the facts, and you will surprise that a friend of you that was very agitated the first time you came with your views a couple of months ago will agree with you without remembering that he changed his mind because of you. And don't say I told you so. Accept the change and welcome it. Don't try to be the hero of the story.
Yes.
That's my suggestion. That works many times. Many Quebecers change their mind, and I will never say, haha, it's because of me. Leave them to accept their own way to come to the idea that Canada makes sense.
Yes. So what about the emotional debate, right? Because I think it's very easy, relatively easy to argue that the Federalists' arguments are rationally stronger, and we appeal to solidarity, to a more efficient world, to more equity, lots of things. But how to win the emotional debate? What kind of emotions can we arouse?
In being emotional yourself about your convictions, but never emotional against the others. The people who speak differently, think differently than you, are not enemies. They are fellow citizens you need to convince. Never accept that someone of your camp will say that the separatists are traitors, for example. You should blame your friends when they use this kind of argumentation. You should say, no, let's talk with mutual respect. I think it's maybe the main way. And when you will be personally attacked, when the separatists will say, you are a traitor, don't accept it, but don't be mad at this person forever. When this person will have changed her mind or his mind, don't say, I don't want to talk to you anymore because one day you said something. Forget it. Accept it as if it never happened when the people will have changed their mind. And if somebody changes or her mind and says, now I am for Canada, don't say, no, you're not welcome because some past time you were supporting separation. Forget all this. The moment somebody embrace Canada, embrace this person.
So what about the non-federalist part of our ideologies? You are a liberal, I'm a social democrat. So how do you see federalism complementary to liberalism? To me,
that's a key point.
To me, federalism is complementary to social democracy, because today in the globalized world, the only way to redistribute is to have tax coordination, to have common rules, to cooperate, to fight tax evasion, for example. I cannot imagine a more solidaristic world without federations. It's difficult to imagine to me. I guess that for liberals something similar happens, right?
Well, but in a federation you may have a right-wing government and 4 years after a left-wing government.
Of course.
You may have Bush and Obama.
Yes.
We have Harper, a very conservative government today, and I hope we'll have Trudeau, liberal government in a year from now. So no, federalism doesn't stop democracy. But where I agree with you fully is that a good federation will give you the exact amount of money each region receives, according to a formula that is transparent. If you feel that it's too obscure,
that's a problem in Spain.
If it's a problem in Spain, well, it's something to improve together. Because in Canada we have an equalization payment process. My province, Quebec, is receiving $9 billion every year from richer provinces like Alberta. And Albertans know they are paying it. I'm not saying they are pleased by that, but they accept it more easily if the rules are clear. A federation is supposed to provide you this clarity in order to show that the solidarity between the regions is done not according to the fact that some president of a region is closer to the power in Madrid or in Ottawa, but according to a formula that is known and fair by everyone.
But in particular, the liberal parties, right? The Catalan president says that his party, Convergència Democràtica, belongs to the Liberal International. Okay, but he's finding lots of difficulties because no one in the Liberal International supports his cause. Because there is a liberal tradition in Europe that supports federalism. You know, a liberal tradition that goes back to the English, to Lionel Robbins, you know, to the Italians. For example, in Audi in Italy, you know, there's a liberal tradition in Europe supporting federalism precisely as a way to avoid the tragedies of nationalism that perverted the whole 20th century in Spain. So liberals should be federalists. It's incompatible with.
But in addition to it, other countries almost always never support unilateral secession. There is no one country in the United Nations that have been accepted as a member against the will of the predecessor state. For why all the countries except Russia and maybe some allies of Russia will not recognize the referendum of Crimea, there is one reason, is because the government of Ukraine opposed it. If the government of Ukraine was saying, I don't care about Crimea, if Russia wants to take it, they may take it. Nobody would object. At the very moment the government of Ukraine said, it's mine, almost all the countries of the world will say it's the territorial integrity of Ukraine. So I'm not surprised that not only liberals but socialists and conservatives all together with few exceptions, will say, all this issue of Catalonia is a matter for Spaniards to decide between themselves. It's not for us to interfere.
Not surprising at all.
No. You cannot expect that if a province of Canada, if the premier of a province of Canada said, I'm now the president of an independent republic, and Ottawa, the capital of Canada, said, no, you are not. You're still the premier of a Canadian province. The world will say, you're still the premier of a Canadian province. And if you want to be the president of an independent republic, you need the agreement of the government of Canada. It's the way the world works. And except very, very extreme situations, like in Kosovo, for example, where some countries, like my country, but not yours, recognize Kosovo because of the awful situation there, and the fact that unanimously they want their independence, and that Serbia anyway is out of Kosovo because of NATO intervention. But Kosovo is not in the United Nations anyway. You have enough countries, including China and Russia, who are opposing the recognition of Kosovo, that Kosovo is not recognized internationally at the level where Spain and Canada is. So you see how much it's impossible to think that unilateral secession will have international recognition.
There's a small debate in Catalonia about the similarities and differences between Crimea and Catalonia and Ukraine and Spain and all this, and of course there are differences, right? The first difference is that they are not in the European Union, and happily we are. But in the messages of the nationalists, there are similarities, right? They speak of the right to decide, they plan illegal referenda, they have different flags. I mean, the slogans are
where
similar.
this right to decide is written, where
Exactly,
it exists.
yes.
If somebody in Quebec said we have the right to decide what? To decide that your neighbors will not be Canadian anymore. And if these neighbors are saying, no, I have the right for me, I want to stay Canadian, I will stay Canadian, you don't have the right to remove this identity from me. How?
Exactly.
In which mess are we?
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think in democracy it's so easy to act outside the legal framework and the rule of law.
Yeah. Well, it's precisely thanks to the legal framework that the different identities are able to share the streets of Europe, the homes of Europe. I mean, we share identities, nations overlap in Europe, in every single country.
But the European Union has been very clear.
Yes.
The European Union, Mr. Barroso has said this is for Spain to decide. It's not for us to jump over Madrid to decide that the region of Spain will become independent. It's a matter that Spaniards need to decide between themselves.
Yeah. So one last question. In Quebec, did you have the same problem that we have here, that the provincial institutions of Quebec were used by nationalists to promote strongly the idea of independence? I mean, here it's scandalous. I mean, the use of public media, the use of public resources to support secessionist movements, it's amazing, and there's nothing to stop that. We don't have, access to any instrument to stop that, and it's absolutely scandalous.
That's the main problem. If over decades Spain changed from a very centralized unitarian country to a pretty centralized country, and each time Mr. Pujol was going in Madrid and saying it's to make Catalonia stronger in Spain. Mm-hmm. And if now it means no, it meant to remove Spain from Catalonia, then it's creating a lot of mistrust between Spaniards and Catalonians. And I don't know what will be the solution. It's not for me to decide. But it's good maybe to look at things in the long term and to see the improvement, and then to figure out how can we improve the situation within the country. It's what I'm saying in Quebec, when many separatists are saying, oh, Canada is too centralized. I said, what are you talking about? It's one of the most decentralized federation on the planet. It's true that some decisions are taken in Ottawa, where most parliamentarians are not from Quebec. It's true. But these people that are not from Quebec, they are Canadians. We are Canadians. They are our fellow citizens. They are making decisions that are, if I'm comparing with the decisions made by the province of Quebec, sometimes much better, sometimes not. We are learning from each other. But there is no reason to think that because they are not Quebecer, by definition it will be bad decisions. So yes, we need to get out of a situation where you have separatist blackmail as a way to get more. It's much better to argue for improvements in saying, I have ideas to improve Canada with my Quebec culture and my Quebec ability to move things.
Yes.